All right, I'm making this video because being a video production company owner, a freelance videographer, a photographer, or creator can be super challenging, especially whenever you're trying to figure out, do I do all of the work? Do I charge this amount? Do I take freelance jobs? Do I jump, from network to network or TV show to TV show, or do I just stay in this town? There is a lot to navigate, and over the years I've done pretty much all of it. And I'm making this video to kind of address something that my friend called me about yesterday. He is a content creator, a videographer, owns his own company, but also freelances. And I think we all do all of that if you're watching this channel. But he called me and asked if he should take a price that is way lower than what he would normally charge. I think number one, he needed the work. Number two, he explained that it was for a VOD, or like a network that had VOD, video on demand. So something like, it wasn't this, but something like CMT, where they have, their network, but they also have a VOD platform, and it was going to go straight to the VOD platform. So it sounded like it was a decent opportunity. And then the last thing was, it was going to be really long days, and I think he was only offered like $150 a day, which is like PA numbers, like really bad in any region, and even here in Mississippi or Alabama or Georgia, wherever you are in the Southeast, if you're in the Southeast. And, he called me wanting my advice on whether he should take the gig. And I'm basically going to tell you now what I told him. That really depends, because there are certain scenarios where maybe you do want to take the gig. I've done, 10 years in, I've done free work just for the opportunity, and it paid off. And then I've also done free or low paid work for the opportunity, and it amounted to nothing. And so, you've got to decide if it's worth taking the risk. I think he decided not to do it. I'm not really sure why, because I just told him, if it's for, this big company and you think it could lead to a lot more work, and you can stomach it. If it's like 3 days and you're going to make $450, maybe it's worth it, right? But the main thing is, instead of and you can freelance all day long, don't get me wrong, freelancing is great, but at the end of the day, you're only going to get paid for that hourly wage. Whereas if you learn how to solve a problem and then use your camera to solve that problem, you get to do videography and photography, but you also can pay a lot. You can charge a lot more for solving problems than you can for images. And that's something that took me about 10 years to learn. But to give you an example, let's say an agency needs you to film a commercial for a dentist. Okay, they're going to pay you $150 an hour. Sounds great. It takes about 8 hours to film, and then you hand over the footage. Now, in that time, I think that's $1,200. You made $1,200. The agency, instead of going out and filming it themselves, they gave you $1,200, but they're going to charge the dentist office $12,000 to put that video on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, run it as an ad, also put the video on their homepage of their website, use the video as a tool, right, to solve the problem. And they might even be licensing the video for a period of time to where they have to renew that license, managing their website. And so the agency is really making a lot more money and doing way less work if they're just, they're also hiring an editor. The editor gets it done, and then they basically are just running it as an ad. And that might seem unfair, but it's really not, because their service, the problem they're solving, that is way more valuable to the dentist than who shoots the video. The dentist doesn't really care, right? And so it's just food for thought. I don't know exactly where I was going with this video. That my friend called me and asked, should I do this? And, I basically said, listen, man, it's on you. You got to decide if you want to do it or not. Think about where it could lead. Think about where you want to be. How much money do you want to make? And does that make sense in your current situation? If, say, it was CMT, country music television, and you're really into country music and you've been shooting country music videos and it's just kind of like your niche, then yeah, I'd probably take the $150 a day and run with it and try to get, my foot in the door. But otherwise, if you just need the money, hey, we've been there too. Go ahead and do that, but it just depends on where you are in your journey. And the one thing I will say is, if it looks like something that's going to be reoccurring, like the type of work, and you charge them or you allow them to pay you $150 for the day, it's going to be really hard to break out of that. It's going to be hard to come back and tell them, hey, actually my day rate is $12.50 and the half day is $800 or whatever it may be. Because if you'll do it for $150, somebody else probably will too. And that's another problem in our industry. And I actually see it, I still do a lot of weddings just because I find it enjoyable, actually. And I find the responsibility of it enjoyable because I'm good with people. And so taking on somebody's wedding film, to me, it's a big responsibility, and I kind of like thrive in that. But in the wedding industry, videography and photography is getting so saturated, and everybody's, slashing their prices low. And it doesn't bother me a bit because, I might not be getting as many leads now. I might not be getting as many bookings. But when I book a wedding, number one, I take it hyper seriously. And for that reason, and because I have a family that I'm going to have to abandon for that Saturday, I'm making $3,000 to $4,000, sometimes more, for a wedding. Whereas these videographers and photographers who are charging $850, $1,200, they've got to do 5 weddings to make what I make in one. And so we call that the race to the bottom, which I'm sure, you might be familiar with. It's basically where so many people get into the market and the competition gets the demand, or the supply rather, gets so abundant that people start to slash their prices to try to win the jobs. And it really is a race to the bottom. I've learned to position myself as more of a premium service, and that's not because I have a nicer camera or nicer lenses or a nicer drone or am a better filmmaker even. The reason that I am able to position myself as premium is my personality. Whenever I get an inquiry, let's just take a wedding, right? And then we'll move to business, but it's the same thing. When I get a wedding inquiry, I get on the phone immediately. And I really want to learn about the couple. I want to learn about who they are, their lives, their families, what's important to them. And that gives me also a chance to convey my seriousness around it, because I'm not even quite sure I want to work with them. If the video is kind of a willy-nilly thing, we're like, oh yeah, we just want to throw it in, I don't know that I want to do it, because I want the language to be like, yeah, we really want like a memorable thing we can show our kids and our grandkids, and that gets me inspired and excited and lets me know that when I get there, my seriousness is going to be matched, even though we can have fun and not be so robotic serious. I just mean like there's a lot of weight to it. Now you can be lighthearted about it, obviously, and I am at weddings, but it is nice to know when they really want quality. And you can have the nicest camera on the planet, but if you don't have the passion, the drive, and if you don't care, it's not going to come through. And I've seen a lot of wedding videography, or videography in general, that's like that. But moving on to business, when I get an inquiry about business, I like to get on the phone with them because, I can tell them too, you don't need me. Like, maybe you just need to do TikTok, and you can do that on your phone and have your son edit it, whoever's, tech savvy in your company or your house or whatever. Because at the end of the day, you gotta learn that it's all about serving others. And there's a guy, Earl Nightingale, if you've ever heard of him, he wrote a book. It's called Lead the Field. You should really read this book. But it's kind of elementary, like the stuff you hear in it, you already know, but it's the way he puts it and the way he frames it, and then all of his life that is evidence of, these principles. But two of the things is you should treat every person in the world like they're the most important person in the world, because as far as they know, they are, and that will take you a long way. But I don't really know where I was going with that either. Earl Nightingale reference, but one of my favorite authors and motivational people. Really good. Napoleon Hill too. But yeah, you kind of have to decide for yourself, and it just depends, because like I said, you don't want to put yourself in that box where I'm the $150 guy. But I understand too how hard it is to set yourself up as a premium service, and because money is important, right? Like, we want money quickly. You have to learn how to budget. If let's say I do one project a month for $8,000, well, that's plenty of money, right? But if I get that $8,000 and I immediately spend it on a camera and I immediately go out to eat 5 times with my wife and kids, and then I don't have another one for another month, well, that can be a little tricky, right? So you really gotta think about all that kind of stuff. And the hardest part with raising your prices or setting yourself up as a premium service is it takes longer to nail that job. Or maybe you do go 2 weeks without a job, but then you land one for $5,000. And you start looking at the math, you're like, oh, I made $2,500 a week this month. That's not bad. It's $10,000 in a month. But the thing is, you just don't know in what increments that's usually going to come. Now, obviously, there are ways to make this happen incrementally and consistently. I have 2 retainer clients that pay, a couple thousand a month. So I know each month I have those recurring contracts, and then anything else is kind of just, on the top, icing on top. Now, 6 months, a year when those contracts end, those could go away. So, I'm not dormant, just not thinking about it. I'm actively always going after new retainer clients. And I also think that's where clients get the most benefit and bang for their buck, is when you're creating consistent content for them. But I digress a little bit. This was more about my friend who called asking if he should take, less money for this opportunity. And again, if it's just like your dream industry, the dream company, you're going to meet the people you want to meet, take it. If it's not, and it's just about the money, don't do it, because you're going to frame yourself as that $150 guy, and you're just not going to care as much, right? So that's it for this video. Hope it helped you guys. Like, subscribe, peace.